Hi, everybody. Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Uh, let's just dive into these 7 stories, starting with Petrification, Proliferation by White Squirrel. This is a Harry Potter story that takes place right at the end of the second book, where the basilisk is treated as a bit of a bigger actual threat than it was in the books themselves, taken a bit more seriously, even after the fact, and then basically leads to a couple investigations that tear down the entire House of Cards that is Harry Potter canon. Um, I wouldn't really call this like really funny or like it crack because like it's not crack. And while there is a bit of humor and Schadenfreude to like that, like I got from reading this and seeing like everything just like end up like based on one small investigation end up wrapping up everything else coming in. Um, it's more just from a personal more the amusement's more from the meta perspective, whereas this narrative and what's actually written is more just straightforward and serious tone. uh, it doesn't give the full catharsis because the author decided to end the fic early before actually like wrapping up fully everything. But it's still an ending that leaves that's clearly leading to like Voldemort getting swept up before the third year actually starts and everything, and it still works pretty well as a story that just doesn't have that big or like final like all done moment. And it's still like I said, like it's still overall great, and like for those who enjoy the fact that like, oh wow, there's a lot of nits and pieces that are actually all very close together, so pulling at one thread unravels the whole story. It's a fun bit. I enjoyed this a lot. It's gonna stay on my list. Number 2 is That Sounds Like Work by flabbyknight. And this is an amazing worm fic. It is a crack fic. I love this fic so much. Like spoilers, like this is if you've read one of the other stories that has been on my list called Harry the Hufflepuff by Bahabi. It's where it's similar in vein where the main character and protagonist is just believes that laziness is like the highest calling of all, and just does everything they can to be as lazy and do as little work as possible while showing off so much ingenuity and like creativity to just really take things up a notch. And Taylor, as a character in Worm, like escalation is her thing. Escalates the amount of laziness. It's ridiculous. Um, and it's really fantastic seeing how lazy Taylor handles the bleakness of Worm's problems by just not giving a shit and dragging everyone else down into insanity along the way. Pure grade A crack. I love this a lot. It's gonna stay on my list. Uh, Number 3 is a more serious worm fic called All Alone by AC1308. I've mentioned before that I like AC a lot, and I do. But I've found as it goes on, and I've said this a couple times over, it's mainly their more humorous stories that I really enjoy. They're like those things. This one is a much more serious one where uh, it's based around one of the inciting incidents of Worm going a little differently, where Emma in the original scene where like Emma gets and Shadowstalker meet up, Emma doesn't make it, and so that leads to a different connection. Taylor meets up with Sophia in this, and she gets a new power based on a different scenario where that involves raising the dead. So that's like interesting in a like academic sense. Like it's like yes, that seems like it'd be an interesting thing, but I just didn't connect with this. Like it didn't grab me. I wasn't interested, and like this story does not get very far before they stopped writing. Half the story is mainly just like getting to Taylor's first power like usage and like getting it, and I just didn't find it interesting enough to really continue, so it's going to fall off my list. Number 4 is To Protect Everything by LordDraekai. This is a One Piece fic where Luffy, instead of wanting to be a pirate, decides he wants to be a Marine and wants to become an admiral, and then joins the Marines at same age that he started canon, but still decides to get permission to start solo and get a crew and create his crew the same way it does in canon, and it goes through that, and like it just was boring to me. I got up to chapter 15, which is up to Little Garden, and basically nothing had changed by the fact that like Luffy was a Marine. Like the only difference that really happened is that in Logtown he doesn't fight Smoker because he's a Marine. He's not a thing. Like he still meets up with he beats up Albedo, meets Buggy, beats up Morgan. Has to fight Morgan and beat him up and get Zoro that way. Sanji and that fight still happens. Like everything just seemed exactly the same, and it just felt boring at the time because of the fact that hey, Luffy's now part of the official law keeping force, and considering what we as things go on, how corrupt and stuff the thing actually is, like you'd expect more changes even from that, because the higher ups know who Luffy is and stuff, and like the real higher ups would never really like let this go. Maybe that happens further on, but like I just got so tired and like of just nothing happening, like, and it just was a bore to me. And like it also doesn't help that like Luffy at least has been trained a lot by Garp in like the 6 powers, and he has hockey and all this stuff, so it also has the OP protagonist blandness watering it down to make all the fights boring. Granted, this is a Little Garden. Luffy and everybody in that early stage is like way higher than everybody anyway still, but this is even more like just boring and nothing, so it's like I just didn't care. I did skip ahead just to see if there were things changed, and I know like the latter chapters, where the author stopped writing, get up to like Gecko Moria and things like that, and I'm assuming when dealing with the Shichibuki and stuff, like maybe there's some difference, but I just didn't care enough to get to that point. So yeah, this is gonna fall off my list. Number 5 is another worm fic. This one's called Trope by Pseudosim. And basically here, this is alt power fic where Taylor has basically kind of like a Wiki Warrior style fic. Not really Wiki Warrior where she gets new powers and keeps them, but she has like a set number of slots of powers that will be thematically related to literally going through random tropes from TV tropes and such. And it's basically a story that has like an independent Taylor that's staying away from the wards, doing her own thing, also trying to rehabilitate Rachel into more of a human being, has a pseudo mentor in Assault, and this is just another one that I just did not really vibe with. It adds new dynamics. It's not with the Undersiders, not with the wards. Has some like being connected with Assault and having some new dynamics that way, and how she deals with Rachel stuff. It's okay, but it never really grabbed me or made me really interested. And it doesn't help that what the author wrote stops before any real big beats occur, so it's something that I wouldn't mind casually reading, but for my favorites list, it's not going to stay on here. Number 6 is Reading Council of the Underworld, The Game Begins by Bonesboy15. This Bonesboy15 and Engineer Forever are a pair of authors that I've said multiple times on this list, because they both work together and have done a series of Percy Jackson crossovers. Bonesboy first making Naruto crossovers and Engineer Forever making Harry Potter ones. And then they each decided to do reading fics of the others' stories. So this is Bones Boy doing a reading fic of the third Harry Potter crossover that Engineer Forever did. This one where Harry, a female Harry, is a daughter of Hades. Yes, I did like this one. So I didn't put. Interestingly, I went to confirm. I didn't put the plain story on this list, but that's not a knock of quality against the main story. I'm pretty sure by this point, when I was adding stories, I mentally was just like, oh, I'm just gonna add the reading version to my list because it has the main story inside it, and so like it puts both of them on my list at the same time. And yes, that is a full understanding of that. Like, yes, reaction fics, like when you have the whole text and stuff, yes, that you can use them as a replacement for the regular fic to a degree. It's a little. I'm not gonna go into that for much. Like, but the main thing here is like I enjoyed this a lot. Still, the interjections and stuff by this point, because the reading fics for Bones Boy and Engineer Forever both are like in the same timeline and are as if like multiple things happen. So there's a bit of mellowness like now that they've gone through the most immediate like cheap shot sniping and stuff that's really annoying. Like it's become a bit more subdued and more like just actual interactions going on in regards to the reactions. So that's fun. And also the story itself I enjoyed a lot. I will say that like for a reading fic, as I believe I mentioned before, it doesn't quite work always as a full replacement unless you can unless you like mentally just skip all the reaction stuff, because the constant interjections will throw off the tone of the original story, and that is going to happen. But I think like this still works, and it's the fact that it's very clear like the original text is in bold, the reactions are not, so like you can work to skip it if you want. So I think it still works for both purposes if that's what you really need it for. But I enjoyed this as a reading fic as well. And I also, going into the actual plot of this one, where it's a femme Harry raised by Hades, so she's very much more politically minded and goes in like that kind of route, while also dealing with the Harry Potter stuff quickly. It goes through all 7 actual like years of her at Hogwarts and deals the Harry Potter stuff gets wrapped up nicely, and then there's a whole bunch of Percy Jackson godly stuff going on that's different from normal, since this takes place all like the ending of the story is the start of the first Percy Jackson book, like going into that. So like it's all diverging from canon, so earning a lot of points from that. Even the Harry Potter stuff diverges from canon, with Voldemort basically getting wrapped up by year 2, so all of that stuff works. This femme Harry feels more fleshed out than her other counterparts, and I just like this a lot, both as like the story and the reading aspect. So yeah, it's gonna stay on my list. And the final story for this video is Back to Worm with Too Many Alternates by Prince Podincherry. So this is a concept based on it's a time travel concept, but instead of just one person getting time traveled, or even like a bunch of people or like a couple of people getting time travel, it's like basically like it's like a shit ton of people get time travel back to the past and all come back around the same time, like within the same day, but they're all from different futures. So this was based on another fic that I believe was on my list called Far Too Many Time Travelers, which is a Harry Potter fic that was done played as a comedy, which I enjoyed a lot. This one is meant to be played more straight. However, there's not enough writing here to really see anything. Because there's not much writing here, this is just like you get like a single scene or two introducing each person and getting a little bit of their future stories, since it's not everything, unlike far too many time travelers, where we saw like them make like what their world was and them making their decision to time travel each time, so we can get a glimpse of their future and stuff. This one is like just all in the past only, so we have to infer, and the author does make notes for the many of them of explaining like which stories they're pulled from and such, but overall, like by itself, it's just a bunch of like intro segments that don't really do anything. uh and I know there are other stories that have done this better, like Far Too Many Time Travelers, and there's a couple others. I think Wish. I know there's. I think Wish is one that does that on Space Battles, like which is another worm fic where there's like um, there's a Glory Girl and Taylor from different parts in the future, both from canon, but like Taylor at the end of Gold Morning and Glory Girl from the end of Ward come back in time. So like there's better stories out there. You should read them. This one's not gonna stay on my list. So it's gonna fall off my list. So there we go. Another bunch of stories read. Fan fiction status time. I've now read 1,153 stories, and 538 of them have managed to stay on my list. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I leave links to these stories in the description, so you can always make your own decision if any of this interests you. And links to other things like a playlist for all these videos, link to my fanfiction.net profile, all that stuff. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.